Hey everybody, what is going on? XLex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get to before the end of the season, but I think the video, this video rather, is going to go up on the very last day of July the 31st there, so I think we managed to just barely squeeze it in here, but this is yet another adventure deck that I had wanted to cover, but it was kind of lower on the list of decks that I was going to focus on. Obviously, the adventure engine being able to be put into so many different decks meant that there was just so many different builds to try, not even like just decks in general, but like builds of those decks too. So we did manage to come back in time for Adventure Zoodiac, and this is going to be more of a Pure Zoodiac build. We have taken a look at Pure Zoodiac in the past, obviously way back during Season 1 during the Xyz Festival, of course, but even aside from that, Pure Zoodiac is definitely a more than viable deck in its own respect. It's often thought of the Zoodiacs as being a engine that you put in Tri-Brigade decks, but you know, it's because again, it's really easy to think of Zoodiacs like, oh, what do? They just go into Drident and then Zeus and nothing else, right? And I mean, yeah, that is the main appeal of Zoodiacs, is to go in Drident and Zeus, but to say that that's all they do really does underestimate just how powerful even that is in and of itself, but also just the zoo monsters in general. Zoodiac also being a very flexible deck, being one of those many decks. You're starting to see a recurring trend, I'm sure, in this format where a lot of the best decks are ones that have quote-unquote one-card combos, because those are decks that can very easily slot in a lot of disruption, or a lot of engines such as the Adventure engine as well as DPE, of which Zoodiac is able to play both. You see we've got both the Adventure engine cards as well as Destroy Phoenix Enforcer in this deck, because really all you have to do with the Zoodiacs is just normal summon one, and then you start stacking the Zoodiac monsters on top of it. And if you're going second, or just, you know, able to battle in general and go into a Zeus, you know, the one Zoodiac monster plus all the Zoodiac Xyz and then Zeus is a 6 material Zeus right there, which in and of itself is often more than enough just to flat out end the game. So deck is also very consistent. You know, we have 10 Zoodiac monsters. We've got the Fire Formation Tenkis. Ideally, I would like to have like Pot of Prosperities in here too, but well, and honestly, I would really like to have Crosshead Designators, but I couldn't even really fit those in. You can see we're not playing any Crosshead Designator currently. I would actually really like to have at least 2, not just because it's generally a good card, and I suppose we could just go up to 42 cards, but Crosshead Designator is particularly good against Maxx, which is particularly effective against this deck. Obviously, once you summon a Zoodiac monster, your opponent's probably going to respond with Maxx, and then you can't go into your Zeus without giving them like 5 or 6 draws in the process, which, yeah, 6 material Zeus is powerful, and there are games where you're going to have to play through Maxx in that scenario anyway, because the 6 material Zeus, like, is definitely not incapable inherently of handling, you know, a hand that just got to draw 5 or 6 cards, but at the same time, you know, we're ideally not trying to give our opponent quite that many draws, as it'll still be quite difficult to deal with. Let's see, I don't know that there's really a whole lot to necessarily explain, because again, the deck is relatively self-explanatory. We're playing the Zoodiacs, those stack up into Drident and or Zeus. We're playing the Adventures, those are doing adventure things. DPE is doing its own thing. We are including a Link Spider in the extra deck. This is actually very important because it'll allow us to turn an adventure token into an effect monster if we needed to, or potentially a Nibiru token too. That is definitely something that could very easily come up. But then that could very easily allow us to go into the Vert Anaconda to then go into DPE. We're also playing triple Forbidden Droplet. I could, I guess, drop a Droplet, drop a Droplet in an Imperm for the 2 Crosshead Designators, but this is very much a going second deck. Like, this deck actually does actively want to go second because its main plays do involve battling to go into the Zeus there, that being the main kind of draw of the deck is the 6 material Zeus. So having 3 Imperm and 3 Droplet for going second, I feel, is a little bit more worth it than the Crosshead Designators. Same reason why I've got like Harpie's Feather Duster over Crosshead Designator. This would normally be like I'd put Crosshead Designator in deck before Feather Duster, but again, we generally like going second in this deck, and we'll often choose to go second. Not even often, I just do generally choose to go second with this deck. So it can be right to go first, though. I don't know. It's funny because I noticed this with Sky Striker too, but a lot of these decks are now opting to include the adventure line that would always go second. Now I actually kind of want to go first because you can then get out your Wandering Griffin Rider to have an Omni Negate up for the opponent's turn. So, I don't know. Who knows? It's just a kind of a mixed bag. But, all right, as always, let's go ahead and break down this list card by card just so everybody knows what all we're playing and we're all on board with that. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at some gameplay. So, in this deck, we are playing 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 1 Destiny Hero Celestial, 3 Zoodiac Whiptail, 3 Zoodiac Thoroughblade, 3 Zoodiac Ramram, 1 Zoodiac Kataroost, 1 Destiny Hero Dasher, 1 Wandering Griffin Rider, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 2 Fusion Destiny, 2 Rite of Aramesir, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 3 Fire Formation Tenki, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Called by the Grave, 3 Forbidden Droplet, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. Down here in the extra deck, we've got 1 Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 2 Zoodiac Tigermoartar, 1 Zoodiac Drident, 2 Zoodiac Boarbow, 2 Zoodiac Hammerkong, 3 Zoodiac Shokanine, 1 Drill Driver Vespinato, 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus Sky Thunder, 1 Link Spider, and then finally 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda. So there was actually one other thing I wanted to mention. A change that I was thinking of making is that I want to either add a Pot of Avarice to the main deck or possibly take out like the second Hammerkong and the third Shokanine for Utopic F-Zeros. And those might seem like two very different changes, but they both kind of boil down to the same point that there are some times with games in this deck where you go for DPE and Zeus and maybe your adventure line, but your opponent either stops all of it or it's not enough. Well, if you've exhausted all that, you're kind of out of stuff to do at that point. And I mean, that's true of any deck, but I think it could be anyway, beneficial to have just like one more option of like one more thing. Well, I think it's important for this deck in particular because this is a more controlling deck, so its games tend to go longer anyway, so it'll find itself in that position a little bit more frequently than other decks. So I'm just thinking like maybe the Utopic F-Zeros, or again maybe a Pot of Avarice to refuel a Zeus line, just like one more good boss slash end monster slash end play I think would be beneficial to this deck. So that is a change that off the top of my head I think I would definitely make moving forward playing with this deck. But this is the build that we were testing with the games coming up, which we will now go straight into. First game of the video here is going to be against, it's interesting, it's a 60 card like Invoked Kaiju deck. It's not IDS, was not playing Dogmatica or Shadal or Despia stuff. Just saw a lot of Invoked and Kaijus and just generally good cards. So opponent's going to take the first turn here. We've only opened with Nibiru, but that's still definitely not a bad hand trap to open. You look at our hand, we've got, this would actually be a really good first turn hand as we have access to the adventure line, the DPE, and then of course the Zoodiacs as well. So opponent's going to establish their own adventure line here. We don't have the resources to stop it, so if my opponent does reach a point where they can trigger my Nibiru, even if they have the Griffin Rider out, I'll still go ahead and use my Nibiru if I can here, because I want to get that Omni Negate off the board and out of the way if possible. So okay, so that's 2 summons there. If I remember right, this game I actually misclicked. I was trying to flip this to on, but I think I did it too late, and if I recall correctly, I actually missed my initial opportunity to Nibiru. Let's see, that was 3, 4. Let's try to remember if that was the case. No, okay, it wasn't actually, because Makaba is summon number 5. I was trying to remember if I had missed an opportunity to Nibiru before Makaba came down, but no, it doesn't look like that was the case, so oh no, this is what it was. Right, I missed the opportunity to Makaba before the Alistair got added back to hand. That's how I misclicked it there. I was trying to flip it to on, but I think I did it at the exact right moment where the game thought it was flipped to off instead, which is really annoying. Like, you know how the trigger here thing is set up to auto? Well, it goes auto and then off and then on when you click it. I think if you're clicking it and it's on auto, it should go to on, because that's generally what I use it for. But anyway. So yeah, you know, opponent's got the Maxx live here, as well as the Griffin Rider up and the Makaba up as well. There's no negate, or no cards in hand for the Makaba to use to negate stuff right now, but obviously with Maxx being live, that is going to be the case. So first things first, though, we're going to need to get this Griffin Rider off the board. So what I'm thinking here is I'm going to start with the adventure line. I'll start by using the Water Enchantress and just see at what point my opponent decides to Griffin Rider here. They actually allow the token onto the board, which I think was a mistake. I think they should have Griffin Ridered the Rite of Aramesir. Instead, they're going to Griffin Rider the Fateful Adventure. But, you know, had they actually done it on the right, then they would have accomplished this. They would have gotten my Fateful Adventure not, you know, in play. But then on top of that, I wouldn't have had the token. So Alright, from here I'm just going to go ahead and go straight into the Fusion Destiny. My plan is basically to battle over this Macabre instead of triggering its, allowing it to have the opportunity to trigger its effect. Also want to give my opponent as few draws off my special summons as possible. So going for the Zoodiac line, definitely not an option here. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get rid of the token and the equip spell as a result as well. And yeah, get my DPE back during my opponent's standby phase here. So we only actually gave them 2 draws for that whole Maxx. We were still able to answer their board pretty cleanly, as well as establish our DPE here. Definitely an ideal outcome to what looked like a pretty tough turn 1 to play into there. Opponent's doing some more adventure stuff. At this point, I'm not like too fussed about it. One, I've got the Maxx here to start drawing cards as you know, they start trying to do more things, and 2, I know they can't do the Dracoback because I believe that should already be in the graveyard, right? Yeah, so no real reason to worry about that. And since they surged off the adventure already, I know they can't Wandering Griffin Rider. They are going to establish their own DPE here, but you know, given that I have card advantage, and given that I also have this Forbidden Droplet, I'm really not concerned about it. So opponent actually does something here that you want to make sure that you're not doing if you find yourself in a little DPE standoff here, and that's activating DPE's effects while your opponent's only card on the field is their own DPE, because what they can do is what I'm about to do here, right? My opponent activates DPE as Chainlink 1 to destroy 2 cards on the field once the effect resolves, right? I'm going to do the same thing as Chainlink 2, activate DPE's effect. Chains, as we all know, resolve backwards, so my DPE is going to resolve first. I'll blow up DPE, and then one of my opponent's cards, I think, will blow up the token here, but then my opponent's DPE's effect is still going to resolve, so then they have to blow up at least one, if not both, of their spell cards. They could also blow up DPE in one of their spells, but if I remember right, they actually just end up blowing up both spells here. So, want to make sure that you're trying to avoid this scenario if you're in a DPE standoff like this. So yeah, they have to blow up both of their own cards, because they still have to resolve their effect. I didn't negate it, I just took away the thing that they wanted to destroy with the effect. Alright, so I'll use Dasher's effect here to special this Whiptail. That's going to allow me to go into a Drident to bait out the CPE effect without actually committing my normal summon. And I can also just go into a Zeus line right after that too. So definitely not a bad draw off the Dasher there. Plus, depending on how I draw or if I end up using the Droplet this turn, I could potentially also use Celestial's effect this turn. And as my opponent goes to activate the DPE, I decided to do just that. I'm just going to use Droplet's effect, pitching the Ramram to prevent the DPE from activating. Depending on what I draw off the Celestial, I might, it's kind of a big might, but I might be able to try to squeeze some kind of lethal. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't really think there was any draw here that could have done it. I'll give up my Maxx because I don't really anticipate that my opponent's going to go off a lot, given how few resources they have access to right now. Oh yeah, so I did end up, actually not that short, just 1,000 damage short, but not quite enough to be able to finish my opponent off this turn, but obviously we can still put them in a very precarious situation. Not only do they have to deal with the DPE and the Vespinato, but then during the main phase 2, I am of course going to link away into Zeus as kind of like a last measure resort if I need to, so to speak. Yep, this is going to be a very familiar sight if you choose to play this deck, is just stacking up all your Zoodiac monsters, one on top of the other before finally ending on the Sky Daddy Zeus himself. And we'll throw down the Imperm too for good measure. So yeah, opponent's only top decking one card here. Yeah, their DPE is coming back, but I've got an Imperm, so their DPE is not going to really do anything too threatening here. They do have the Feather Duster, which is going to force the Imperm, and then they can just DPE and pop the Sky Thunder, but at this point I'm not really concerned about it because, you know, obviously I've got my own DPE as well, and the Vespinato. Like, I'm going to have enough resources for to be able to finish off my opponent. And, oh yeah, they do actually get their Celestial draw as well, but I think I actually got pretty lucky in that. Oh, that's right here, because they end up bringing out the Kaiju here on me. So that is a little bit annoying, but we actually drew a Droplet, which is a pretty phenomenal draw. And then here, I don't know if this was a misclick or what, but my opponent brings back the Dasher instead of the DP, which should still be engraved, right? Oh, no, it wasn't engraved. Oh, it got banished. Okay, well, that would explain it. Oh no, they must have misclicked that though. That was the misclick there, because yeah, they banished DPE and Celestial. I bet what they did was, I bet it was a reflex where they clicked DPE first because they're used to clicking it to bring it back, and they end up banishing it with Celestial. So I just wanted to think here real quick, like if my opponent had brought DPE back, well then I could have just dropped what it did, so it wouldn't have really mattered. So I think this game was pretty much mine anyway, but I'll use Droplet during the damage step here just to secure lethal in this one blow and not risk either the back rows proccing. So yeah, nice little back and forth we had with a 60 card Invoked deck there. Alright, let's go and take a look at the next game. Next duel is going to be against Trap Tricks, another kind of control-y deck, a little control mirror going on here. I say control and not stun because I do believe there's a difference. I think control is more about using disruption to stop your opponent from doing things, where stun is more about using like floodgate type effects to stop your opponent from doing things. Once again, opponent's taking the first, well obviously opponent's taking the first turn. As I stated in the deck profile, we generally go second with this deck. Sometimes I do accidentally click going first, which again isn't really that big of a deal, or sometimes if the opponent is also playing a going second deck, they might make you go first. But opponent decides to pick out a small world here. I really thought they were going to go for the Lord of the Heavenly Prison, but I guess they valued this Ecclesia. I'm not really sure why, because it doesn't really end up doing a whole lot, to be totally honest. But yeah, I'm going to pop off the Maxx as soon as I see a Trap Tricks normal summon, because I know they typically just go straight into the Link Trap Tricks Sarah here. So yeah, against Trap Tricks, if you've got a Maxx, pop it off as soon as they normal summon. They do special the Ecclesia here to add the Dogmatica punishment, but again, I guess he did only have one back row otherwise, to be fair. But I don't know. I thought Lord of the Heavenly Prison. I guess I'm also biased because I do have the Feather Duster in hand, which I'm thinking like, oh, if they had Lord of the Heavenly Prison. See, that's results-oriented thinking, which is definitely something you want to avoid. That is actually a whole topic that I could go into in and of itself that I see not like super often in the comments. I see it more in like, it's funny, I tend to see it more in other games comments where I guess like I've seen it in Hearthstone video comments quite a bit, where it's like, oh well, the right play would have been to do this because your opponent had this on board, but that doesn't take into account that, like, you know, the decision to make that play was made before that other card was on board. Like, basically results oriented thinking. You know, the idea is that like you criticize based on the correct answer, knowing the results, but trying to evaluate what the correct decision is when you don't know what the result is going to be is very different from then retroactively calculating the best decision, knowing what the result is. So that's what I mean when I say results-oriented thinking is just not generally helpful. Is that you know, we want to be thinking about what is the best play in the moment. What is the best play knowing the information that we have available to us, you know, not the information that we were going to have in the future. So anyway here, so I'm going to go ahead and go into Zeus, of course, like it's, what else are you going to go into? But I'm still going to end up activating one of these Fusion Destinies, even though I've got Zeus in play, because I want to get rid of this Murmillo, for example, but I don't necessarily want to commit to Zeusing the entire board here. And it's a little bit risky, right, in order to leave the DP up while Zeus is on the board, because Zeus's board wipe is a send and not a destroy, so if DP ends up getting caught up in it, then DP is not going to come back because it didn't get destroyed. But I do actually have the other Fusion Destiny in hand, so what I'm going to do before I end my turn is actually set it. So this way I have the option to DPE. If I want to just get rid of one card and don't want to necessarily board wipe, I can do that. But if I do need to board wipe while this DP is still in play, I can also do that by popping the Fusion Destiny. Now here, the Fusion Destiny is actually going to act as an unintentional bait for my opponent there, but at that point I'm fine, because then my opponent has cards for me to pop with DPE in response to the Zeus effect, so I don't lose the DPE to Zeus that way. But in any case, the opponent's going to concede. They just realize they couldn't get over it. I mean, getting over either DPE or Zeus in that kind of a scenario for the Trap Tricks player would be, like, I think fairly difficult, but to have both, you know, that's definitely not any wonder why they conceded there. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next game. Okay, so this game is against Adventure Virtual World, which I actually did kind of want to come back to at least once before the end of the season, and it was kind of a toss-up between doing more games with that deck or making this video, but I wanted to get one more new deck in, because I'm pretty sure I set a record here, right? Like, as far as number of new decks I've featured on my channel in the span of one season. But again, that's just the the nature of the adventure line for you being so splashable. So trying to ash the opponent's water Enchantress, but they do have the call by. It's going to be a little bit annoying, but at the very least we do have the Maxx as well, and since we have seen the call by, then we know that's going to resolve, unless they have a cross that designator. But then at that point, the opponent's also using up enough resources that I think it's fine. So yep, here is the Maxx in response to the Rite of Aramesir, and it's going to resolve. So the opponent does not have a crosshead designator in hand. The extra water Enchantress, obviously not the most ideal draw in the world, but we will make it work. Now, here is the Griffin Rider, of course, sending the Dracoback to equip onto the token, and then opponent's going to actually make a very smart play here and not special the Griffin Rider so as not to give me a draw. I actually haven't thought about this before, but no, I think they probably should have summoned Griffin Rider a little bit sooner. Like, oh no, it is during the main phase. Okay, so they could have done it during the draw phase. So, okay, yeah. No, yeah, like I said, I think that was a fairly solid play on my opponent's part to summon the Griffin Rider on my turn to not give me a draw. I've actually not even really considered that myself, so props Tenson here for the inadvertent tip there, I guess, so to speak. Okay, so here I'm going to use Whiptail's effect to force the Griffin Rider, because I thought about it and I was like, would I rather have a Zeus online, or would I rather try to get a Rite of Aramesir online? Because, you know, I could have gone into the Zeus without forcing the Griffin Rider, but the problem is then it's like, then the Griffin Rider is just going to hit the Zeus, and like, yeah, Zeus can activate in response as well. Although actually, hang on, does Griffin Rider, let me see something. It's negate and then shuffle, right? Shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, so maybe that wouldn't have gone off. I'm actually trying to think. If my opponent had a Griffin Rider out and I had a Zeus, and I activate Zeus to respond with Griffin Rider, or I respond with Zeus again, does the Griffin Rider negate and destroy my Zeus? Because I don't think it specials, or I don't think it shuffles itself back into the deck. So maybe that would have actually worked. I'm not too sure, but oh yeah, oh, my poor opponent having the mistimed call by. I don't know if you caught that at the end there. I meant to actually pause it and point it out, but I actually end up talking over it. But yeah, my opponent actually did have the call by to respond to that Ash on their Fateful Adventure, but they activated it after the chain instead of during it, so yikes. I have definitely had that misplay happen before, but I mean, even if they had activated it mid-chain, I don't know, actually it would have been a toss-up if I would have used the Griffin Rider, which actually, it actually could have very easily changed the course of the game. I'm not sure, but in any case there, that is going to do it for that game. I think we've got one more. Yep, one more here. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Okay, last duel with the this deck for the video here is going to be against Cyber Dragons. It's definitely been a while since I played against Cyber Dragons. I think this was, yeah, I was going to say that they actually made me go first here, so I was expecting Numeron. Even though I'm in Diamond 1, you'll still see people playing Numeron in Diamond 1 for some reason. So, here I'll start with Zoodiac Thoroughblade, and I will use the effect. I actually usually like to, if I can, even if it is something like Whiptail. Whiptail is actually one of the ones I would consider keeping around, but we can actually get it back with Chalk 9 here anyway, which I think is actually exactly what I ended up doing here, if I recall correctly. Yep. Although I did misremember that the effect is negated, so I mean we could just do it during the opponent's turn. It's not that big of a deal, but in any case, we're doing this so that we can set up a 2800 attack Drident for our opponent's turn. So we'll leave that in attack mode, drop down one of our droplets, and then pass over to the opponent. So yeah, the effective Whiptail is a quick effect, so I'll use it now, but the opponent does have a Cyframe Gear Gamma in their hand. It's not really clear, I guess, whether they would have activated this before, or whether they had it before, but, because I don't think I actually used any activated monster effects, but, I'm not really too upset about that getting, Omega'd. I think that's fine with me. I was a little worried that this was like Sword Soul, and they were going to go into like a level 8 Synchro here, but, as you can see, that was actually very much not the case. They instead Kaiju'd me, and then normal summoned a Cyber Dragon in order to Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon me, which is a very is a very 2010 play, and I mean that in the best possible way. That very much makes me nostalgic for that good old 2010 Yu-Gi-Oh. Actually, it was some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh I've played, to be totally honest. But oh, don't get me started in my in my Yu-Gi boomer memories. I will ramble back in my day stories all day long if I do. in any case here, yep, we're just going to use the Boarbow to sneak in the attack so we can go into Drident, I mean, not Drident, Zeus here. Yeah, I mean, the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon was a little bit annoying as far as getting rid of that and the Kaiju getting rid of my monster, but, like, again, that's, like I said, that's a very 2010 play, and in 2022, you know, 12 years later, it's not enough just to leave a 2000 attack, pretty much vanilla beat stick on the board, and kind of hope that's going to be enough to live through, or not live through, but stand up to whatever your opponent's going to do. Not in a world where we have Zeus. not in a world where we have Zeus. And the opponent realizes this as they end up conceding at this point as well. So, alright, that's all the games that I've got. Let's go ahead and move on now to the outro. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That definitely does mean quite a bit to me. Also means a lot to me, those of you who are choosing to comment and or subscribe. Comments, love to hear from you always. If you've got suggestions for the deck, for the build, for gameplay, about how good you or even bad you think the archetype is. Adventure Zoodiac is a deck that I haven't seen a whole lot on ladder, but I think, like Pure Zoodiac before, it is just generally underestimated. I don't think it's like a sleeper tier 1 deck or anything by any means, but I think it's a pretty solid tier 3 deck. I think it's definitely above, like, the Rogue. I don't know if it's very far above. I would even probably call it lower tier 3, but I definitely do think it sits decently enough above Rogue status that it is a viable tiered deck, in my opinion. So, yep, and then subscribing. Yep, if you choose to do that, that is the best way to get notified of when my videos drop, which does happen every single day. So those of you who subscribe, you do have daily Master Duel content like this to look forward to when you do so. But that's all I've got for today, so without further ado, this is XLex signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.